Okay, in this video, I'm going to address a criticism and offer some sort of explanation. So, I made a video about, I entitled it the 10 car length rule, but I was explaining the fact that the sport incites the fans and has given us misinformation. So, I made a video about the commentators from Sky Sports F1 actually lying about the regulations to condition viewers that the regulations allowed for points to be awarded and a race result to be declared after following a safety car around for 2 laps of the track. That is not in the regulations at all. That's in a video. It's about an hour and 10 minutes long where I break that all down, show you the regulations and evidence what was being said by the Sky Sports commentators. In Saudi, what we had was the Sky Sports commentators talking about Valtteri Bottas backing Max Verstappen up, and we had F1 TV play to the world a message recorded between Max Verstappen and his Red Bull team, where Max was complaining about it, and Red Bull clearly not happy about it, saying it was bullshit, whatever it was, and that was played to the world. Sky Sports affirming that it just wasn't acceptable. But again, within the regulations, which Sky Sports were then trying to say it's not allowed in accordance with the regulations, that doesn't hold true. And if you watch this video, if you've actually seen it, there's only been about 225 views, so not that many have. You'll hear me getting angry. And in many of my videos, I do get genuinely angry about what it is I am either seeing or hearing. So why? Why does it make me feel like that? Okay? Why does it make me feel like that? And the trolling comments, most of them I dismiss, but sometimes it's useful because it makes you re-ask yourself these questions again. Because I do know the reason, and I've analysed this some time ago, but maybe I've never exposed this to you in quite this way. So I'm going to do that. So we've got a comment here from Troy Beecroft, somebody that's come to the channel, never says anything positive, always looks to snipe, always looks to have an objection and try to disprove everything that I ever present. So his comment on this one was, James, I see you missed to read out 48.5. No car may be driven unnecessarily slowly. That would have messed with your rant though. So he's trying to say that I'm picking and choosing which regulations to demonstrate to you to fit my narrative, and that it's a rant. Okay. Yes, it was a rant. Yes, it was shouty. I get angry. Why? The reason I get angry is because we are seeing the creation of conflict. All right? Within the sport of Formula One, there is now huge conflict. There is real toxicity. There is a lot of argument between fans. Hatred. Now, why? Where does that come from? What causes it? One of the root causes of it is information, education, and the accuracy of it. What are we arguing over? You see, if everybody was presented with accurate information, what would we argue over? Take the sport of football, for example. The basic parameters of football, there's loads of different rules, okay? And there are judgment calls. Don't get me wrong, there's judgment calls that fans of football will argue over. But there are basic rules. So, for example, if the ball goes out of play at the side of the pitch, the game restarts with the throw-in to the team who didn't put the ball out of play. Yeah, it's basic rule of football. If the ball goes over the goal line, in terms of not within the goal itself, but either side of the goal, then if it was the team defending that goal that put it out, it's a corner to the attacking team. If it was the attacking team that put it out, it's a goal kick. We know these rules. Nobody argues over those rules. Nobody argues over what it is that you're allowed to do. We all know. Now, there might be judgment calls as to which player touched the ball last, whether or not the whole ball crossed the line, as to whether the award of whatever the decision is made. They are judgment calls. But we're not having the rules of the sport lied to us about, and then fans arguing as to whether the rule is the rule or not. In Formula One, those people that are supposed to be commentating on the sport, and in doing so informing us about the sport, are lying. They're purposefully lying. It's their strategy to lie. They do so for drama. They do so. The safety car, they've been lying for years. They've been lying since 2012 when these regulations were reintroduced, rather than simply say, this is now what's happening, this is why it's happening, this is the purpose. They'll always go, oh, and what are we going to do here? How long are we going to wait? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Are they going to do the other? I don't think they have to do... That's not how it is. In football, the ball doesn't go off the side of the pitch and the commentators go, oh, what are they going to do here? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Is it going to be a penalty? Is it going to be a free kick? No, mate, it's just a throw-in. Right? We all know that. That's the rules. In Formula One, they want to make you excited. And they lie. And them lies, of course, conflict. Because there are those of us that know what the rules are and what needs to be done. There are a few of us within that know the purpose of the rules, hence why it is you need to do it. But then there's a massive group of people that just listen to what the so-called experts are saying and don't understand the rules. That has caused conflict, and that conflict is driven by people's desires as to what they want to see happen, what outcomes they want. And consequently, we're now in this situation which could all be avoided. It can all be avoided. Abu Dhabi 2021 could have all been avoided, quite simply, if at the moment Nicholas Latifi crashed and they deployed the safety car, in commentary they'd have simply said, okay, we've got a safety car situation, there's only 5.4 laps of the race remaining. On average, this takes about 5.5 laps to clear up, so it's highly likely that we are going to see a safety car finish. If there is going to be any chance of racing, then what needs to happen is the track needs to be cleared and declared safe. And because we have lapped cars now, those lapped cars are going to need to be released, and the safety car perform an additional lap to give those released cars the opportunity of making it around that track and hopefully catching the back of the pack. If that can be done in time, then we may see racing. But that needs to be done at the latest in terms of the release of those lapped cars. They all need to be released before the end of lap 56. That way lap 57 can be that safety car lap given to them, and then we can see a racing resumption to this race. If that can't be done, then it's going to be a safety car finish, and you're in the process of witnessing history, because providing he doesn't crash out or suffer a mechanical failure or puncture, Lewis Hamilton will be on course to win a record-breaking 8th World Championship. That is the simplicity of the situation. If you had authentic people, real people, capable of telling the truth and educating fans in the right way, that could have been said at Abu Dhabi, and all of the conflict would be avoided. All of the controversy would be avoided, and we wouldn't be where we are now. All of the hatred that I get, and many of you have got, because many of you will have made comments on social media protesting the fact that we witnessed a sporting robbery. And you will have received hatred as a result of it from people who have been led to believe otherwise, or who are minded to want to conflict with you because that's just who they are. The majority of that could have all been avoided if we didn't have liars in the media lying for an agenda. Absolute lies for an agenda. That agenda being, well, there could be multifacets to it. It could be to deprive Lewis Hamilton on the grounds of various reasons. It could be skin colour. That could be a factor. Let's not deny that. It could be they didn't want to see Michael Schumacher's record overtaken. Okay? Especially by somebody with Lewis Hamilton's skin colour. Alright? It could be that they wanted a new champion on the grounds of ending Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton's domination of the Drivers' Championship. It's definitely a factor that they wanted to make the championship battle tight to increase interest. If one competitor is running away with every title, then fans aren't attracted to a sport. It builds excitement when there is a close sporting contest. So that would be one of the things that they will try to manufacture. That is makes it more entertaining, makes it more saleable. As we've seen in 2023 with the dominance of Red Bull being what it is, which, you know, again, we can question the legality of how they have got that performance. But regardless of that level of dominance, people are switching off. Those that like it, they'll continue watching. But there's a lot of people that are not interested in tuning in, giving up 3 hours of a Sunday, 2 to 3 hours of a Sunday, just to watch the same procession week in, week out. So the sports organisers try to do something about it to make the situation more competitive. That's what they will try and do. But what we get is lies. I hate lies, and the lies are purposefully perpetrated here for the agenda. And that agenda has made Liberty Media billions, the sport of Formula One billions. All teams involved have increased to the tune of billions, certainly hundreds and hundreds of millions. And there's been conflict caused. And they've caused the conflict and profited from the conflict. And the same thing happens in other aspects of life. And believe it or not, I don't particularly want to have conflicts. I'd much prefer a life where there wasn't any. But if you have to fight for what is right, then so be it. That's not a fight that I'm scared of. That's not a fight that I'm going to back down from. So, you know, this Troy Beecroft has accused me of picking and choosing which regulations I'm going to show you, and the notion of no car may be driven unnecessarily slowly, and that would have messed with my rant though. So relating to the rant, yes, I get ranty, but that's the reason I get angry. I get angry at hearing the lies, and those lies cause the conflict. Because if you are explain the truth, you accept the truth, and then there's no conflict. So let me just show you an example. If we go to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in 2021, Lance Stroll, he crashed. He suffered a tyre failure similar to Max's, right, several laps earlier, and he crashed out of the race, and that caused a safety car. Now, if you look at these gaps here, we've got Max Verstappen crossing the start-finish line, Sergio Perez in second, Hamilton in third, and then we've got the cars coming after. Stroll is actually at fourth in that race at that stage, having not pitted, and Gasly is fifth back up here. I'm going to play this through. You're going to see this green dot of Stroll come to a standstill around about where I'm trying to wave my cursor now. Keep your eye on the gaps between Verstappen, Perez and Hamilton. Listen to the commentary. You'll hear that they're going to deploy the safety car. Watch what happens to these dots. Here we go.
Love about this race as well. You know, you make one mistake, the DRS will punish you massively. Here, the wheel spin as that car stands on the loud pedal there.
Yeah. Oh no, whilst we look at Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, it's back now.
So, Stroll's car has come to a standstill. What you'll see with these gaps between the drivers, they seem to kind of close up, but that's when they've slowed for a corner, and then when one car's accelerating out, you'll see them extend again. All right, that's common. It's just what we see. Anyway, watch the gaps.
We are nothing an issue.
He's feeling a loss of power now.
I wonder if that's clipping.
Oh no, and that is an accident, and it is Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. And as I said, here in Baku, you are only a few centimetres away from a big accident, and Lance Stroll, who might well have been coming into the pits, the only driver who hadn't pitted in this race so far, has left a huge amount of debris on the track, and a safety car, you would imagine, is inevitable at this stage.
What did they do though? Did they pit Hamilton? Did Red Bull stay out? What do you do for track position?
Well, no, they can't pit because the pit lane entry is closed, because Lance Stroll, you see that dotted white line, that is the pit lane entry. Safety car has now been thrown. I'm hoping Lance Stroll is okay, because that would have been a hefty whack into the barriers in the Aston Martin, and he's still sat in the car. But this race has changed in an instant here in Baku.
Is Sergio Perez going unnecessarily slow? Is he within 10 car lengths?
With the Aston Martin crashing on the main straight, the medical car has been deployed. He's moving around in the cockpit. That's great.
Are all of these cars catching one another? Are they within 10 car lengths?
Great to see. You don't want to see drivers take hefty whacks like that, Paul di Resta, and you are nudging 190 miles an hour when you get to that stage.
I'm just hearing Ant saying in my ear he's had a tyre failure, Crofty. And he was the one on that hard tyre a very long time. We were just talking about if he could do those lap times. Very uncomfortable if that's going to happen, because that's going to mean the guys up front are going to be wary of that at the end of the Grand Prix. I wouldn't expect the barriers are damaged. I wouldn't expect we'd need a red flag because there are concrete walls around here. But while the pit's shut, that is going to bunch the field up, and it is not, hopefully not going to make too much of a difference to how the order is at the moment.
Well, this is where if you've got fresher tyres.
Okay, Max is crossing the start-finish line now. Previously, you'll note that Perez, Hamilton were about where, in line with the four. They're behind that now. who's going unnecessarily slowly? Is unnecessarily slowly, how do you measure that? Okay, what has happened is they have all slowed down to a delta. They've not started catching each other yet. What will happen is they have to stay to that delta till the second time they cross the safety car line, but by that time the leader will have usually been picked up by the safety car. That slows the leader even further, slower than their delta, and then the rest of the field bunch up with it because they're travelling slightly faster than the safety car until they catch the safety car. So look at that gap. All that time afterwards, that gap hasn't bunched up. So, and in terms of a double stack, on this occasion, they couldn't pit. The pit lane was closed due to the location of the accident. If Red Bull were going to double stack Verstappen and Perez, for example, Verstappen goes into the pits. If Perez was going to arrive there when Verstappen was still in the pit box, is him driving a couple of seconds off the pace to make sure it gives him an extra couple of seconds to make sure when he arrives at the pit box, he's not going to get held up? Is that driving unnecessarily slowly? Or is that just hanging back a bit to give yourself that little bit of extra time so you can pit and not get held up? Because that essentially is what Valtteri Bottas was doing in Saudi. What he wasn't doing is holding up the car behind so much that Lewis could get in and out of the pits and remain ahead of Max if Max stayed on track. That, I would agree, would be wrong. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. Anyway, I'm just going to play this bit through.
You might just benefit at the restart. Let's have a look and see what happened to Lance Stroll. And yeah, absolutely no chance of avoiding the accidents. I said potentially coming into the pits. He was the only one who hadn't pitted so far, 30 laps into this race. Oh, that's an impact, isn't it?
Of course, what we don't know if it was debris, whether it was a puncture.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa. Whoa, red flag, red flag.
Copy that.
Just get me out of this place on the track. I got a puncture.
Copy that. Copy that.
So Lance very shaken up by that. Left rear, I'm being told, was the tyre.
You can see it slightly gives up, and as he lifts and the downforce bleeds off the car, round it goes, and that's purely just because of the way the physics of the car works and the downforce. Well, it still had the load, but as soon as it got a bit yaw on it, round it goes. But, oh, Pierre Gasly was close there, wasn't he?
Wasn't he just? I mean, it was lap 30. Pirelli say those hard tyres can do 40 laps. So well within the parameters that Pirelli set, as you rightly say.
So you can see now, Max must have been collected by the safety car, slowed him down even further, and Perez and Hamilton have now caught him. And then they never once mentioned anything about the speed that those cars were catching, the fact that they were travelling to a delta, the gaps in between them. Why? Because it's not an issue. It's not an issue. That's just what it is. There's not a problem. So why are we creating a problem? Why are we creating the conflict? We'll go to the regulations and we'll look at the safety car regulations. 48.1 is just saying the FIA safety car will be driven by an FIA appointed safety car driver. Bert Mylander or something. I mean, we all know his name. 48.2. Prior to the pit lane opening for a reconnaissance lap, the safety car will leave the pit lane and take up position at the front of the grid and remain there until the 5-minute signal is given. At this point, except under Article 42.1c, it will cover a whole lap of the circuit and take up position. 48.3. The safety car may be brought into operation to neutralise a sprint qualifying session or a race upon the order of the clerk of the course. So this notion of it neutralises it. When you neutralise something, all previously built up advantages are wiped out. It's been neutralised. Okay? It will be used only if competitors or officials are in immediate physical danger on or near the track, but the circumstances are not such as to necessitate suspending sprint qualifying session or the race. 48.4. When the order is given to deploy the safety car, the message "safety car deployed" will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. All FIA light panels will display SC, and all marshal posts will display wave yellow flags and SC boards for the duration of the intervention. 48.5. This is the one I was accused of ignoring or not including by design to fit my narrative, apparently. 48.5. No car may be driven unnecessarily slowly, erratically, or in a manner which could be deemed potentially dangerous to other drivers or by any other person at any time whilst the safety car is deployed. This will apply whether any such car is being driven on the track, the pit entry, or the pit lane. Well, according to Red Bull's own rules here, it says this will apply whether any such car. Well, that doesn't mean all. So Valtteri's allowed to drive it however he wants, because it doesn't mean all, does it, Red Bull? Which way do you want to run these rules? Are we talking any car or all? Because if it's any car, then it doesn't include Valtteri's car. Okay? I'm being silly there, just as Red Bull were being silly in their appeal. All right? Which they shouldn't have been allowed into. So, let's just analyse 48.5. No car may be driven unnecessarily slowly, erratically, or in a manner which could be deemed potentially dangerous to other drivers or any other person at any time whilst the safety car is deployed. So what is unnecessarily slowly? You define that. There is no definition of what constitutes something being unnecessarily slowly. Okay? That would be a judgment call. Now, if you look at, we'll look at this. We will see when we look at the Saudi tracker view, you could perhaps say if during that period where these gaps between the drivers, where they're driving to a delta, if they remain relatively constant, well, all drivers are pretty much obeying their delta. If one is driving unnecessarily slowly relative to everybody else, then he will hold everything up and they'll all catch him, won't they? That will cause like this train of cars to form behind him if he's really slow. Yeah. We can take the Monaco Grand Prix for example, where they're supposed to be racing, and George Russell, made by Mercedes to drive slowly to preserve the tyres. Is he driving unnecessarily slowly? Who's to decide? You know, there's no definition to say from that statement. You can't determine, because you can't apply penalty to say, oh, you had slowed down to complete that lap 2 seconds slower than what Lewis went round in it. That's unnecessarily slow. You get a penalty for that. Nothing defines at what point you apply a penalty. What's the difference? As I say, you yourself as a driver, if you are double stacking, if you are the second car into the pits, well, you want to make sure that, let's assume you are in second, you've got third place behind you. When you pit, you want to come out in second and make sure that third place, if it pits as well, comes out behind you. You don't want to arrive at your pit box only to find the guy in front in first is there and you have to wait, and during your wait, third place has pitted and got out ahead of you. So you slowing down a couple of seconds on the way in, okay, to give you that time to make sure that your pit box is clear for you to do that, well, is that a problem? Well, no, it's not. There's nothing in the rules or regulations that prevent you from doing that. Okay, he didn't do it erratically. It wasn't dangerous. It's not like a brake test, is it? That's classed as erratic. You know, I wonder where a brake test happened. It's not driving another car off the track erratically, lunging into a corner whereby if your other competitor doesn't jump out of the way, there's a crash. Bottas didn't do anything erratic in that manner. He just backed off slightly to give himself that room to be able to double stack. 48.6, the safety car will join the track with its orange lights illuminated and will do so regardless of where the leader is. And 48.7, which I read out in the other video, all competing cars must reduce speed and form up in line behind the safety car no more than 10 car lengths apart. Okay, this is after this first part of it. So the 10 car length things, 10 car length situation, which, you know, we're all quite familiar with, that comes into force after a period of time, and this is how it's defined. In order to ensure that drivers reduce speed sufficiently from the time at which all competitors have been sent safety car deployed message via the official messaging system until the time each car crosses the first safety car line for the second time, drivers must stay above the minimum time set by the FIA ECU at least once in each marshalling sector and at both the first and second safety car lines. A marshalling sector is defined as a section of track between each of the FIA light panels. The stewards may impose either of the penalties under Article 47.3 A, B, C or D on any driver who fails to stay above the minimum time as required by the above. So what does that mean? Okay, that means it says trying to get to the right bit. Drivers must stay above the minimum time set by the FIA ECU. So for example, if the minimum time is, by the time you reach the marker for the first sector, you've got to be above 50 seconds. So if you arrive there before 50 seconds, you've gone too fast. So you've got to be above that time. So if you arrive there in 51 seconds or 53 seconds, well, you're legal. When you've got to arrive at sector 2 marker, you can't arrive before sector 2 marker before 1 minute 30. So if you've arrived there at 1 minute 32 or 1 minute 35, you're legal. Does the difference between 132 or 135 define that you have driven unnecessarily slowly? Well, no, it doesn't, does it? There's no clearly defined parameters other than the notion that you've got to back off sufficiently so that you have to be no faster than this. Now you determine what's unnecessarily slow beyond that. A window of, a margin of 2 to 3 seconds as to whether you arrive there 1 second after that minimum time, or 3 seconds after that minimum time, or 5 seconds after that minimum time. Well, what defines unnecessary? Well, there's nothing to define that. There's nothing to define it. And then we go on to 48.8, which is, you know, just moving on to the other things, and then we move on to when the cars have been in situ, lapped. Well, for those who haven't seen my other videos, 48.10, which is one that is never used, in terms of nobody uses this to explain Abu Dhabi. 48.10 is this: except under Article 48.12, the safety car shall be used at least until the leader is behind it and all remaining cars are lined up behind him. Which means when you deploy a safety car, then that safety car will remain on track until all them competitors are bunched. So you're in the correct race order, cars lined up one behind the other. It will remain on track until all those cars are bunched. That's what it means. But it says except under 48.12, where cars have been lapped. 48.12, when cars have been lapped, are when it's safe to do so, those lapped cars are given the order to pass the safety car, and that safety car will remain on track for one further lap. And that further lap is giving those release cars the opportunity to try and make it around. And the race director has at his discretion the ability to keep that safety car on track until he is satisfied that those cars are sufficiently caught up. It's nothing to do with sufficiently out of the way. It is to restore sporting fairness to all those competitors. And the evidence, which I've displayed in other videos, proves what he's actually doing. Giving those competitors enough time to catch the back of the pack. And there'll be people that want to argue that. There'll be people that will seek to try to argue that what I am saying and the purpose of what I am saying is wrong, and yet it's not wrong, and they are just trying to have that argument because they want to try to somehow justify what it is that took place. But regardless of what you want to justify that because that is what you wanted to happen. But what did happen broke the regulations. I'm telling you what the regulations are and the purpose. Your argument is, well, that's not the purpose. Well, whether or not you believe me as to whether that's the purpose or not, whether or not you jump up in the comment section and go, well, here's an example where they didn't catch the back of the pack, and therefore what you're saying is the purpose isn't the purpose, because that's we see those comments as well. Think back to Abu Dhabi. The crux of the matter is they didn't carry out that regulation. So I'm telling you they have to carry out that regulation. I'm explaining the purpose and therefore the importance of it. They didn't carry out that regulation. So they broke the rules. And the only argument you can give, because they broke the rules, you can go, oh, well, 15.3 means he can break the rules. No, it doesn't mean that at all. That's lies that you've been fed. Or your other argument now is, oh, well, that's not the purpose of the regulation anyway, so you're wrong. No. They didn't carry out the regulation. So whether you believe the purpose that I'm explaining to you, whether you believe the evidence that I show of Michael Massey keeping that safety car on track for a further lap to enable those released cars to fully catch the back of the pack, like he did in Spain 2019, Brazil 2019, Sakir 2020, and Eiffel 2020. He used his 15.3 to keep that safety car on track for 2 laps. Carried out the mandatory one and then kept it on track for an additional lap at each of those 4 events. Michael Massey did that. And he did it because he knew the purpose, and that purpose is to ensure sporting fairness to all competitors. But you, some of you will deny that. You won't want to acknowledge that because that goes against your desires. Let's look at what happened in Saudi. So what we're going to see here is a white dot of Mick Schumacher. Put it into the tyres. Look at the gaps between the drivers. I will acknowledge the gap between Hamilton and Bottas increases. But by how much? 2, 3 seconds? What defines unnecessarily slowly? Anyway, let's have a look.
Well, he would have been on pole, and it was a super flying lap, but you, as Ant said at the Sky Pad, to finish first. First you have to finish, and he didn't get to the line after brushing with the concrete. They've not replaced the gearbox. They think everything is...
So, Mick Schumacher stacked it into the tyres. Hamilton's lead over Bottas seemed to stretch out, but obviously Hamilton slowed for the corner, so that gap seems to be kind of concertinaing up again. You'll see it kind of extend and contract as they go into corners, and one car is still carrying the speed down the straight.
Okay, and so far so good as Giovinazzi keeps ahead of Sainz, but for how much longer? That is Mick Schumacher into the barrier at the infamous now turn 21-22 complex. We saw Charles Leclerc there in practice. Mick Schumacher has gone into the barriers now. We've got our...
And what you see there is Bottas seemed to catch Hamilton. Okay, so it seems Hamilton has backed off pretty much straight away, and Bottas hasn't reacted so quickly. So does Bottas then think, oh, I don't want to get penalised for having gone, exceeded my speed that I'm supposed to have slowed down? So does he then compensate? I don't know. I'm just looking at the same thing that you're looking at and suggesting what might be happening.
First safety car of the evening.
Are you okay, Mick? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Sorry about that.
That's gone in quite hard, Martin, but it's difficult
So what you see now...
not to go in hard on this...
I would say about that distance between Hamilton and Bottas is about the distance that they were apart at the point in time that the kind of safety car would have been declared. And we can go back and check that. Okay, I'm guessing that kind of distance now. Let's go back and check. All right, so we're going to see. We'll go back a bit further. White dot of Mick Schumacher. Keep your eye on the distance between Hamilton and Bottas.
And it was a super flying lap, but you, as Ant said at the Sky Pad, to finish first. First you have to finish, and he didn't get to the line after brushing with the concrete. They've not replaced the...
See the distance between Hamilton and Bottas there? All right. And look how far Max is behind Bottas. So there is a gap between Max and Bottas.
Gearbox, they think everything is okay, and so far so good as Giovinazzi keeps ahead of Sainz, but for how much longer? That is...
Okay. So in real terms, the gap that I suggested was between Hamilton and Bottas. It was about right, probably a little bit generous on the gap. But there's a gap between Verstappen and Bottas.
Mick Schumacher into the barrier at the infamous now turn 21-22 complex. We saw Charles Leclerc there in practice. Mick Schumacher has gone into the barriers now. We've got our first safety car of the evening.
Remember, they are supposed to be all slowing to the delta, which will appear on their display, telling them the earliest point of arrival for that specific car at the next checkpoint.
Are you okay, Mick? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Sorry about that.
That's gone in quite hard, Martin, but it's
Maybe that sort of distance there that I've paused it at there, that Bottas was behind Hamilton before the crash. Max was further back than that, so Max has gained ground on Bottas.
difficult not to go in hard on this fast circuit.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers there of the barrier.
Look at the gaps between Leclerc, Perez, Norris. So if Bottas is going too slow, surely all these gaps will concertina up as well.
Yeah, thankfully, and they give quite a lot. So do you pit then? Do you pit at the moment if you're Mercedes or Red Bull?
Well, Stroll and Russell already have, because they were in a very good position to come into the pit straight away. Lewis Hamilton is just coming through turn 19 at the moment. Bottas ahead of Verstappen. Mercedes have the chance of a double stack because there is enough of a...
Okay, let's count the seconds between Hamilton passing 22 and Bottas passing 22.
Gap between Hamilton and Bottas, but it's a good question. It's right on the fringes of going onto the hard tyre and it lasting for the...
So before, what would it have been? 3 to 4 seconds. Now it's 6. So he's dropped off, what, 3 or 4, 2 to 3 seconds. You define that as unnecessarily slow?
The rest of the race.
Absolutely, and that'll be a long time clearing up as well. But you can't afford to leave your pit stop later into the safety car period.
So we are going to box.
There's the answer onto the hards, which may well go to the end of the Grand Prix. But this, I think, plays into Mercedes' hands again.
Okay, let's again count. Hamilton's at 27. Let's count.
In that respect,
1,
but
2, 3,
Lewis then
4,
scampering
5,
off out front.
6,
and
7. All right, so he's dropped back a second. It's nothing horrendous. It's nothing major, is it? He's just trying to give himself that window to double stack.
And the Valtteri Bottas is, you're not allowed to slow down too much and hold up your rivals.
What is too much? He's not holding up his rivals. He's not doing what Perez did in the race in Abu Dhabi, which is holding up your rival for your teammate. Bottas is doing this for himself. Okay? He's not doing this, so he's holding Max back so much that Hamilton goes in the pits, gets onto some fresh tyres and comes out in first, right? He's doing it so that his pit box is clear so that he can get tyres as well.
Red Bull will be chewing about that.
I think Max Verstappen is going to stay out here as Hamilton comes into the pits. Ted, down to you.
So we've already had some action in here. George Russell has overtaken Lance Stroll in the pits. So that's a nice stop. With the medium tyres, it's a little bit too early, but those hard tyres, nice stop from Mercedes. Those hard tyres could now go to the end, but it's a bit of a push. I think they're also thinking, Mercedes, that there might be another one of these safety cars. The Ferrari comes in. Valtteri Bottas follows his team leader into the pits as well. And there is the Red Bull of Sergio Perez. So Max Verstappen has taken track position. That's very good. I'm expecting Lando Norris into the pits.
He's
see
in
him
now,
Crofty.
Yeah, he was on the soft tyre. A bit of a no-brainer for Lando Norris to come in. But this is, well, for Red Bull, do the opposite of what Mercedes do. Verstappen stays out and takes the lead of this race. Hamilton and Bottas pit. Are Red Bull gambling here on another safety car where Verstappen can come in and get a cheap pit stop again but hold on to the lead? Or could they get caught out? We'll only find out at the end of lap 50.
Yeah, gambling is the right word, isn't it? In terms of course, you don't know what incidents they're going to be. There's a very good chance there'll be some kind of virtual safety car or actual safety car later on. And we call it a cheap pit stop because you pit, you're in the pit lane while your rivals are going much slower than normal, of course. So it costs you, the pain is about half. What can you tell us, Paul?
I can't tell you anything, but the only thing I'm going to throw back at you, what you're talking about, is at the last race when people tried to do this long stint, this is a fast track. You start taking the gauge out the tyre, there's construction concern, I would say.
2 seconds, Paul.
So, as I said, F1 TV play the world this message. This message took place on the previous lap. between Red Bull and Max, or Max and Red Bull. Because Max is now in the lead. It's not a problem, is it? Max is in the lead. He's behind the safety car. It doesn't matter. Like, the fact that he's in the lead is all that matters. Okay, it doesn't matter about what the other cars are doing. He's in the lead, and they're all going to catch him because it's behind the safety car, so he can't have any advantage. All right, it is what it is. So it was on the previous lap. This is what was said.
Valtteri's driving massively off the pace.
I agree. It's absolute.
Massively off the pace. Right? Massively off the pace. What is the pace? In the Monaco Grand Prix we've just watched, them first 10, 20 laps, they were driving around at 10 seconds off the pace set for the pole position lap. 10 seconds off that during the race. What constitutes massively off the pace? As he arrived at these checkpoints around the track quicker than what he's allowed to. No, he's kept above that time. You're not allowed to arrive here quicker than 50 seconds into this lap. Oh, you arrived there 51 seconds into that. That's fine. Oh, you arrived here 54 seconds into this lap. That's fine. That's not massively off the pace, is it? Checkpoint 2. You're not allowed to arrive here quicker than 1 minute 30 into that lap. Oh, you arrived here 1 minute 31. That's fine. Oh, you arrived here 1 minute 36. That's fine. What's the problem? The parameter is you can't arrive here before that. How many seconds after that would be deemed massively off the pace? What you have here is somebody that's frustrated, thinks they are being hard done by. Well, how are you being hard done by? It's a safety car. Okay? If you pit, well, the best that you could hope for is if you and Valtteri Bottas pitted at the same time and Lewis Hamilton was in that pit box, Lewis was going to get out ahead of you anyway, but it might be that the hold up to Bottas may have made you jump Bottas in the pits. But Bottas held back a few seconds so that his pit box was clear. So providing both pit crews operated at a similar speed, Bottas should get ahead of you. Other than that, what are you complaining about? You can't gain on Lewis because, well, this process of the safety car is going to make you gain that time. So what are you complaining about? And why does this need to be broadcast to the world to make certain people feel that there is some sort of injustice taking place? That Mercedes are somehow cheating? This is what the sport of Formula One is presenting to fans, and that presentation has created conflict. If people just were explained the mechanics of the situation, if we didn't have spoilt little brats having little complaints, having little tantrums in his car like that, okay, trying to get somebody else penalised, if we didn't have a toxic team like Red Bull trying to make out that the other team was cheating, okay, and then if we didn't have F1 TV choosing that to highlight that drama to the world, okay, that fake drama that's a non-issue, and if we didn't have Sky Sports in the form of Brundle and Crofty validating it as being so wrong here, then would that be the conflict between the fans? Would we get the Red Bull strap-on fanboy come into the comment section raising that as an issue as to why Max fully deserved it because he was on the wrong end of an injustice?
That shouldn't be allowed, what he does.
Right, so
it's not allowed. It's absolutely not allowed under the regulations. You can't do that.
And
it's absolutely not allowed under the regulations from Martin Brundle. So Martin Brundle validates Max Verstappen, validates Red Bull, F1 TV have thrown it in there so that Martin Brundle can validate Red Bull, vilify Mercedes. Conflict. Created. Do the regulations reflect that? Well, I've just been through them. Do they say that's not allowed? Could what Bottas did be defined as, let's go back to it. Could that be defined? And we need to go back to, where are we? 48.7. All competing cars must, sorry. We actually go back to 0.5, 48.5. No car may be driven unnecessarily slowly, erratically, or in a manner which could be deemed potentially dangerous to other drivers or any other person. Was it dangerous? No. Was it erratic? No. Unnecessarily slowly? Well, define it. Define that. Define unnecessarily slowly. And as I've said, the example I've given, if you are driving and you are not allowed to arrive at this point of the track before 1 minute 30 and you arrive there at 1 minute 35, is that unnecessarily slowly? Who is setting the cutoff? Who is saying, oh, well, as long as you're not above 2 minutes, then that doesn't define as being unnecessarily slow. But if it takes you 2 minutes to get there, well, that's unnecessarily. That's too slow. That's not defined, is it? That's not defined. But instead of educating fans, Martin Brundle,
That shouldn't be allowed, what he does.
Right, so
it's not allowed. It's absolutely not allowed under the regulations. You can't do that.
it's absolutely not allowed under the regulations. Well, what are the regulations, Martin? And can you define what constitutes unnecessarily slowly? Is backing off a couple of seconds to make sure your pit box is cleared when you pit, does that define unnecessarily slowly? So I wouldn't constitute it would. And the regulations don't define that, do they? But what you're doing, you're causing a conflict point.
And he's doing that to allow Mercedes the chance for the double stack to service both Lewis and Valtteri comfortably during their pit stop. But he was a lot further behind Lewis Hamilton when he came into the pit lane than he was when the safety car first came out. What the stewards now have to decide, Martin, is did he go too slowly? That is how Mick Schumacher ended up into the barriers.
Yeah, it's very like Charles Leclerc, isn't it, in the back end?
So, in real terms, what, 4 seconds? He's dropped back over the course of a lap that they've got to comply to a delta, meaning that they have to slow down anyway. He's dropped off the pace by 4 seconds slower than what Lewis's pace were for that lap. At most, I would say. 4 seconds. Is that unnecessarily slowly? Does that constitute an offence? Dropping back 4 seconds? Well, doesn't define that in the regulations, does it? Define the cut-off point for what would be something that you would determine as being, we will penalise you if you travel 5 seconds a lap slower than what you could. Well, nothing's written like that, is there? And ultimately, what is the knock-on effect of it? The knock-on effect is that when the safety car was deployed, Bottas was in second place. He was trying to ensure that if he went into the pits and Max went into the pits, then he came out of the pits in second and Max came out of the pit in third. That's what he was trying to ensure, having both pitted. And that he wasn't impeded by the fact that they were double stacking in the Mercedes team. Is that reasonable? Should Mick Schumacher crashing into the tyres caused Valtteri Bottas to lose a position in the pits to Max Verstappen. And so does just slowing your car down a bit on that slow down lap where you've got to slow down to try and give himself a little bit more time to get Lewis out of the way for him to pit, is that really a problem? In the terms of sport, it's not really, is it? But F1 TV play the message that Red Bull want to have played to the world, to claim that they are suffering an injustice in there. And Martin Brundle of Sky Sports F1 affirms to the world, yeah, that's not acceptable. That's in the regulations. It's not acceptable. Mercedes are doing something wrong to help Lewis, who's unfairly benefiting somehow. And what happened? Well, Max came out, well, was in front. He went by them on the track. And then they red flagged the race. So that's the reality of the situation. It's a waste of time arguing with these people in the comment section. Okay? So I very rarely do it. It's a waste of time. No matter what you say to them, they will want to argue. They will want to conflict. They will have a yeah, but, because I want this to happen, and I'm always going to try and create an argument because I want to I can't acknowledge the truth, basically. They can't acknowledge. This is the actual simplicity of the circumstance. What's there to argue about? What's the real problem here? There isn't one, really, is there? But they created one. They made out that there was an issue. And in doing so, they create conflict. And they do it on purpose. And that angers me. This is how they divide people. This is how they divide societies. And they profit from it. They cause that toxicity. They cause that effect on people's lives. And okay, the effect of Formula One on people's lives is trivial. But I'm talking about the bigger picture. There are loads of things in people's lives where conflict is created and people are suffering. But it's manufactured due to people's agendas. And it's a problem. It's a huge problem. And like I keep saying, this is just a micro example. But it's one that can be used to hopefully wake more people up, to see the mechanics of what they use, how they turn people against each other, using lies, using the media to construct a narrative, to falsely represent a situation whereby, if that could all be avoided, if there was a simple communication, simple explanation of the truth, what is accurate, and then everybody understands and everybody can deal with it. There doesn't need to be the conflict. But again, another dynamic of this is people will not believe the authenticity of the information that I put out on my channel. The comments that will come to my channel are, oh, I would rather believe Brundle rather than just some lunatic on YouTube. Okay? They won't assess the validity of the information. They'll have in their head they'll make a judgment as to who they believe is authentic as a person. They believe Martin Brundle to be the authentic person because he's the one, the presented expert. To them, I'm nothing. I'm a nobody. I am nothing. I'm a nobody. It's what it is. All right. But rather than assess the information, cross-reference it with the regulations, analyse what is the truth, what is the accurate representation of that, you just say, oh, well, I'm not going to believe you, I'm going to believe Martin Brundle. That's part of the dynamic. We get other boys that come to the comment section, and the determination of what constitutes authentic information or not is, oh, are you a racing driver? Have you ever been to a Grand Prix? If you've never been to a Grand Prix, then you can't know anything about road motor racing. Yeah, thanks for that. You know what I mean? This is what to them determines the authenticity of information. They'll only believe it if they think that you know something about it, and what proves whether you know something about it in their head is not that you're able to talk about it in a factual manner and be accurate about it, be right about what you're saying. They don't think you know what you're talking about, but they think you know what you're talking about if you've been to a few Grand Prix. So you might have been along to spectate at a few Grand Prix, still not really know what the fuck you're talking about, but because you've been to a couple of Grand Prix, that makes you an expert, does it? Or you've got a brain, you know what you're talking about because you can analyse the situation, cross-reference it with the rules, understand the rules, know the purpose of those rules from a sporting context, and be able to articulate what everything that should be happening for the correct purpose and explain that to people. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never been to a Grand Prix. You've never driven a motor racing car, so they think. This is their view of me, because they clearly know all of my background. They know everything I've done in my life. But these are the comments they want to make. And that's how they then want to assess the validity of what I am presenting. But again, this is why I say it's futile. There's no point in engaging with these minds, because ultimately, no matter what you respond, you're always going to get an argument back, and an argument back, and an argument back. At no point do any of them ever go, okay, I've just read what you've written, and actually, having considered that, I can see that you're right. It's never happened in 2 years. All right, they don't possess that ability. There always has to be that biting back, trying to validate their self-serving opinion, rather than looking at the situation, analysing the facts, and applying. But they've not been taught that. This is the small minds that they are. This is a combination of their upbringing and their education, and their personal character, that bit still exercising childish demands rather than having the pragmatism to step back, remove personal desire, and analyse the actual situation. Okay, accept the validity of what's right and wrong, regardless of whether or not or how that impacts desires. Anyway, gone on for longer than I thought, gone on for longer than I intended. My videos tend to. So thanks for sticking with it if you're still here. And thank you for your time, and more to come as and when I get time. Cheers.